Go find another table, Mom. This one is only for important people. The voice of my adopted daughter, Sarah, rings out in the elegant dining room of the Chandelier, one of the most exclusive restaurants in Chicago. Laughter erupts around the table where my son-in-law Richard, my teenage grandchildren, and even my biological son Daniel are all joining in like it's the funniest joke in the world. But after decades of humiliation and contempt, I decide it's time for a lesson they will never forget. But before I continue, make sure you are subscribed to the channel and write in the comments, where are you watching this video from? We love to know how far our stories are reaching. Go find another table, Mom. This one is only for important people. Those words slice through the elegant air of the Chandelier, one of the most exclusive restaurants in Chicago, and they come from the mouth of my own adopted daughter, Vivian. The silence that follows is quick, soon replaced by laughter around the table, where my son-in-law Robert, my teenage grandchildren Luke and Marina, and even my biological son Mark are. They all join in as if it's the funniest joke in the world. I stand there leaning on my cane, my face burning with humiliation as other customers turn to look. The crystal chandeliers cast a golden light on the white tablecloths and gleaming silverware, but I feel a coldness spread through my chest like liquid ice. My name is Rebecca. I'm 67 years old, and I adopted Vivian exactly 30 years ago when she was only 8. 3 decades of offering love, support, and everything I have, only to be treated like an intruder in my own family. The only person who looks uncomfortable is my friend Helen, sitting at the end of the table with an expression mixing shock and outrage. Our eyes meet briefly, and in that moment, something silent passes between us. An understanding. Vivian, that wasn't funny, I say, keeping my voice low and dignified, despite the pain piercing my heart like a dagger. Oh, Mom, don't be so sensitive, Mark cuts in, waving his hand dismissively. It's just a joke. You know how Vivian is. I know exactly how Vivian is. At 38, she has perfected the art of making me feel small while maintaining a facade of a devoted daughter for the outside world. For 3 decades, I gave her the best of everything. Expensive clothes, the best education support for every venture she tried. Meanwhile, Mark, my 45-year-old biological son, received the same love and opportunities. The difference is that Mark, even with his flaws, shows at least basic respect. Vivian, on the other hand, seems to cultivate a resentment that grows with each year, as if my generosity is a personal offense against her. Tonight's dinner is to celebrate Vivian's latest venture, an expensive boutique that I helped finance with a small contribution of $250,000. I am always helping Vivian with her projects. When Mark asked for a loan to expand his software company 2 years ago, I offered him the same amount. The difference, he has already started paying me back. The evening drags on with conversation flowing around me as if I'm not there. Vivian boasts about her new collection of imported clothing. Luke talks about his golf lessons. Robert discusses his promotion at the bank. When I try to mention the watercolor exhibition I opened last week, a dream I pursued after my retirement as a university professor, Marina cuts me off. That's nice, Grandma. Robert, tell us more about that trip to New York. Every word spoken, every indifferent glance, every interruption is like a small wound. By the time dessert arrives, I have completely withdrawn the familiar feeling of invisibility, settling like a heavy cloak on my shoulders. I feel like an inconvenient relic, tolerated only because I can still be financially useful. It is then that the waiter approaches with the check, placing the leather folder directly in front of me. What is this? I ask, confused. Vivian's laugh sounds artificial and cruel. Oh, didn't we mention it? You're paying tonight. After all, that's what grandmothers do, right? Spoil the family. Spoil. The word comes out almost choked. I already paid $250,000 for your new store 2 weeks ago. And now you can pay for our celebration dinner, Mark finishes. It's not like you need the money with that huge house all to yourself, the comfortable retirement. My hands tremble as I open the folder. The total blurs my vision. $4,780. They had ordered the most expensive wines, multiple appetizers, the most exclusive dishes. Luke had ordered 2 desserts just because he could. I'm not paying this, I say, closing the folder. Vivian's smile vanishes instantly. Of course you are. You always pay. It's what mothers do. Tension wraps around the table like a dense fog. Helen, my friend of decades, and the widow of an important local businessman from Austin, watches the scene with sharp eyes. Despite her 72 years, she still has an imposing presence with her impeccably styled silver hair and upright posture. Not this time, I reply, handing the leather folder back to the waiter. Just bring me the check for my dish and my drink, please. The waiter hesitates, looking nervously between me and Vivian. Mom, don't be ridiculous. Vivian hisses, her beautiful face contorting into an ugly expression. You always pay. It's what mothers do. Mothers support their children, Vivian, but they aren't obligated to finance their every whim forever, especially when they are treated with such disrespect. Robert clears his throat uncomfortably. Come on, Rebecca. It was just a joke. You don't have to make a scene. A scene? My voice comes out louder than I intended. You invite me to dinner, humiliate me in front of strangers, and then expect me to pay almost $5,000 for the privilege. Mark rolls his eyes. Always the drama. This is why we prefer to go out without you. Those words hit me like a slap. So it is true. They meet without me, probably laughing at my expense, while enjoying the comfort provided by my money. Just a moment, please. Helen's voice cuts through the silence. She stands up, grabbing her purse. Rebecca, that's enough. Let's go. I'm watching how they treat their mother, and this is unacceptable. But Helen... Vivian immediately adopts a sweet tone. The night just started. Helen looks at Vivian coldly. I've seen enough for today. You need to learn to respect your mother. I stand up too, feeling a sudden relief not to be alone. Helen and I have been friends since college. She knows my whole life, my marriage to Charles, his premature death when Mark was only 15, my decision to adopt Vivian a few years later, to give Mark a sister and offer a home to a child who needed one. You're going to regret this, Mom, Vivian says, the threat barely disguised in her voice. I face my adopted daughter, this beautiful, cruel woman who has become so different from the scared, hopeful girl I brought home 3 decades ago. No, Vivian. For the first time in a long time, I don't think I will. As we walk out, I hear the confusion erupting behind us. The waiter insisting on payment, Vivian demanding he wait, Robert trying to calm the situation. I don't look back. The Chicago night air is cool and refreshing. I take a deep breath, feeling as if I have escaped an invisible prison that has been closing around me for years. The scent of gardenias from a nearby garden mixes with the smell of recent rain, creating a sense of renewal. Are you okay? Helen asks as we sit in her luxurious car. The soft leather of the seats and the silence of the vehicle form a protective cocoon against the outside world. No, I answer honestly, but I think I will be. Helen drives in silence for a few minutes until she stops at a quiet cafe in the center of the city. It is a cozy place with soft yellow lights and jazz music playing softly, the kind of atmosphere that invites confidences. We need to talk, Rebecca, she finally says as we settle into a secluded booth. What happened tonight wasn't the first time, was it? I feel tears welling in my eyes. The lump in my throat feels the size of a fist. No, it's gotten worse in the last few years, ever since I retired. Ever since you became just a bank instead of a respected professor. Helen completes her voice hard. I nod, feeling the truth of those words like a blow. In the last 5 years, since I left my position as a history professor at the university, the dynamic with my children has changed drastically. The requests for money became more frequent, the respect increasingly scarce. They treat me like I'm a senile old woman, Helen, as if my only use is to sign checks. Helen covers my hand with hers. Her skin is thin as tissue paper, marked by age spots, but her touch conveys strength. Rebecca, we've been friends for over 40 years. You were a pillar of strength when I lost my Anthony in Austin. You helped me manage his companies when I had no idea what I was doing. I will never forget that. I smile weakly, remembering how I spent nights studying accounting and business management to help Helen after her husband's sudden death. How we sat together until dawn deciphering contracts and financial reports while she battled grief and insecurity. And now, she continues, her voice suddenly different. It's time for me to return the favor. I'm sick, Rebecca. The world seems to freeze around me. The sounds of the cafe, the clinking of cups, the murmur of conversations, the soft music all disappear, replaced by a dull ringing in my ears. What no? Pancreatic cancer stage 4. I found out 3 months ago. The doctors gave me less than a year. Helen's revelation hits me like an avalanche. My friend, my pillar of strength for so many years, is dying. The cafe around us continues in motion. Waiters serving tables, customers chatting, life going on normally, while my own world transforms completely. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I ask, my voice barely a whisper. Helen gives a sad smile, the kind of smile that carries the wisdom of someone who has already made peace with the inevitable. Because I needed to get my affairs in order first, and because I wanted to be sure of a few things. What things? About how your children treat you, about how you've been living. She takes a sip of her tea, her eyes never leaving mine. I've been watching from afar for years, seeing how Vivian and Mark gradually changed. How they went from loving children to adults who seem to see you only as a means to an end. I can't deny her words. The transformation had been slow, almost imperceptible, like water eroding a stone over decades. Small disrespects that grew, calls that became less frequent unless they needed something. Impatient looks when I talked about my own interests. It's not that bad. I try to defend more out of habit than conviction. Isn't it? Helen raises a silver eyebrow. Rebecca, you were just publicly humiliated by your own daughter. They expected you to pay almost $5,000 for a dinner where you were treated like an intruder. That is financial and emotional abuse. Her words hit me with the weight of the truth I had been avoiding. For years, I justified their behavior. Mark was stressed with work. Vivian had insecurities from being adopted. They just didn't realize how their words affected me. What do you want me to do? I ask, suddenly feeling very old and tired. They are my children. And you love them, I know. Helen leans forward, her eyes intense. But love doesn't mean letting them abuse you. Sometimes love means setting boundaries, and sometimes it means consequences. She opens her expensive, soft leather handbag and takes out a heavy envelope, placing it on the table between us. The paper is thick, probably from a fine stationer, sealed with the logo of a renowned law firm. What is this? My will. Helen answers simply. And a proposal. I look at her confused. Helen smiles a smile, mixing sadness and determination. Rebecca, when Anthony died in Austin, you taught me to be strong. You showed me how to manage his companies, how not to let the male executives look down on me. You helped me transform a prosperous business into an empire. It is true. What started as a medium-sized import company under Anthony's direction had become, under Helen's leadership, one of the largest business conglomerates in Central Texas, with holdings in logistics, technology, and retail. The companies are worth almost $2 billion now, Helen continues, and I have no children to leave them to. I swallow hard, beginning to understand where she is going. The cafe seems to have shrunk around us, as if the rest of the world has disappeared. Helen, no. I always thought about leaving everything to you, she goes on, ignoring my interruption. You are the sister I never had, but after seeing how your children treat you, I'm afraid they would simply waste it all, not just the money, but the legacy I built. What exactly are you proposing? I ask, feeling a mix of apprehension and curiosity bubbling inside me. Helen pushes the envelope in my direction. Open it. Shem. With trembling fingers, I open the envelope and pull out a sheaf of legal documents. The words seem to swim before my eyes. As I read, my breathing becomes faster and faster. It's a kind of game, Helen explains as I try to absorb the content of the papers. A test for your children and also for you. The will designates me as the primary heir to Helen's entire estate with one condition. In the next 6 months, I must establish clear boundaries with my children. No more money, no more financial favors, no more allowing abuse. If I manage to maintain those boundaries until the end of the trial period, the inheritance will be confirmed. If you fail, if you give in to their requests, if you go back to the old patterns, everything goes to charity. Not a cent for you or for them." "Why are you doing this?" I ask, stunned. "Because you deserve more than being a walking ATM for ungrateful children. Because I want my money to go to someone who will value it and use it wisely. And because," her voice softens, "I want to see you regain your dignity and strength in the months I have left." I look at my friend, this extraordinary woman who, even facing her own mortality, is more concerned with my well-being. "And what if they change?" I ask. "What if they realize their mistakes?" Helen's smile is both hopeful and skeptical. "Then they will be worthy of you finally. But Rebecca, you have to be prepared for the possibility that they won't change, that when the money runs out, they will show who they really are." I feel the weight of that moment, the choice stretching before me. Continue as I am, funding disrespect and abuse, or set boundaries, and potentially lose the relationship with my children. "I'm not sure I can do this," I confess. "You can," Helen says with conviction. The same woman who faced widowhood at 37, who raised a son alone, who adopted an 8-year-old girl when many told her she was crazy, who became one of the most respected professors at the university. That woman can do anything. Arriving home that night, I find 3 messages on my phone, one from Vivian, one from Mark, and one from Robert. All furious, all demanding explanations for my shameful behavior at the restaurant. None mention who paid the bill. Instead of responding immediately, I sit on the back porch of my house. It is a spacious property in one of the best neighborhoods in Chicago, bought with my own savings after decades of hard work. The yard, with its carefully maintained garden, shines softly under the moonlight. This place has always been my refuge, my sanctuary. I think about how I got here. After Charles's death so young, only 42. A sudden heart attack, I found myself alone with a teenage son and an uncertain future. Instead of crumbling, I threw myself into work. I transformed my pain into purpose, becoming one of the most dedicated professors at the university, rising in the academic hierarchy while raising Mark. Adopting Vivian was a decision many questioned. A 37-year-old single woman already with a 15-year-old son, adopting an 8-year-old girl with a history of abandonment. It seemed like a recipe for disaster, but I saw her in that orphanage with her big eyes full of hope and fear, and I knew she was my daughter. The first few years were difficult but rewarding. Vivian had her nightmares and moments of rage, her deeply rooted insecurities, but she also had a laugh that could light up an entire room, a sharp intelligence, and a fierce determination. As for Mark, after some initial resistance, he became a protective older brother. When did it all change? There was no defining moment, just a gradual erosion. Mark graduated, started his career, got married, and had children. Vivian followed a more turbulent path, dropping out of college, going through a series of failed relationships, starting and closing various businesses. And at some point, both began to see me less as a person and more as a resource. My phone buzzes again. It is Vivian. "Vivian, Mom, answer the damn phone. We need to talk about this ridiculous behavior." I take a deep breath and make my decision. Helen is right. It is time to set boundaries. I type a single message and send it to both children. "I will be available to talk civilly tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. at my house. No shouting, no accusations. I have some changes to communicate." I turn off the phone completely after that, something I have never done before. The silence that follows is both terrifying and liberating. The next morning, when I turn the phone back on, I find dozens of messages, each more indignant than the last. I ignore all of them and spend the day preparing for the confrontation to come. At 2:55 p.m., the doorbell rings. Vivian is there, looking flawless as always in her designer clothes, but with dark circles under her eyes that reveal a bad night's sleep. Behind her, Mark looks equally tired, a rare discomposure in his normally businesslike appearance. To my surprise, Robert is also present, looking uncomfortable. "Come in," I say calmly, leading them to the living room where I have prepared tea. What the hell was that last night? Vivian starts immediately, completely ignoring my request for civility. "Vivian," I say, keeping my voice steady, "if you can't speak respectfully, this conversation ends now." She blinks, surprised by my tone. It is as if I have spoken in a foreign language. How long had I let them treat me this way without pushback? "You left us with a bill for almost $5,000. "A bill that you created," I reply. "For a dinner, you invited me to where I was humiliated, and then you expected me to pay." "It was just a joke, Mom," Mark intervenes, his tone conciliatory. "Vivian didn't mean that about important people." "It wasn't just last night," I continue. "It has been a pattern. You treat me like a bank, not a mother, like a wallet, not a person." Robert clears his throat. "Rebecca, I think you're exaggerating a bit." "I'm not Robert, and I didn't ask for your opinion." My direct response surprises him as much as it surprises me. It is as if a new Rebecca is emerging, someone I had forgotten existed. "What is wrong with you?" Vivian asks, her voice mixing irritation and a hint of genuine concern. "Is it that Helen? Is she putting ideas in your head?" "Don't blame Helen for the fact that you have to pay your own bill," I reply. "And no, it's not her. It's me finally recognizing a truth I've ignored for too long." I take a sip of tea, organizing my thoughts before continuing. The scent of jasmine rises from the cup, strengthening my resolve. Starting today, there will be some changes. First, there will be no more money, no loans, no investments in new businesses, no financial help of any kind. The silence that follows is absolute. The three of them look at me as if I have just announced I am joining a circus. Vivian's expression wavers between disbelief and outrage, while Mark seems to be trying to process if I am serious or not. "You can't be serious," Mark finally says. "I am completely serious. You are adults. Mark 45, Vivian 38, Robert 42. It's time for you to live within your own financial means." Vivian jumps up her chair, scraping on the wooden floor with a sharp squeal. "This is absurd. I just opened the boutique. I need working capital. You promised you would help me." "I already gave you $250,000, I remind her. "Use it wisely." "Mom." Mark tries with his most reasonable tone, the one he uses to close deals. "I understand you're upset about last night, but this is an overreaction. Families help each other." "Yes, they do. I agree. But not unilaterally. When was the last time any of you helped me? When was the last time you asked how I was really? When did you visit me without asking for something in return?" Their faces reveal the truth. A long time ago. The silence that follows my words is dense and uncomfortable. Vivian crosses her arms, her eyes shining with a mixture of anger and panic. Mark runs a hand through his graying hair at the temples, a gesture he inherited from his father. Robert just looks lost, as if he has been dragged into a family drama he wasn't prepared for. "Is this some kind of midlife crisis?" Vivian finally asks, her voice cutting. "You're turning 68 in 2 months, and suddenly you decide to cut off your own children." "I'm not cutting you off," I reply calmly. "I'm cutting off the money. There's a big difference." "For you, maybe," Vivian retorts. "But what do I do with the boutique now I have expenses suppliers to pay?" "Do what other entrepreneurs do. Seek bank financing, cut costs, work harder." I keep my voice firm. "It is no longer my responsibility to support your ventures." Mark, always more strategic than his sister, changes focus. "Mom, we're worried about you. This behavior isn't normal. You were always so generous, so available for us." "And I am still available emotionally," I clarify. "You can call me, visit me, talk. Just don't ask me for more money." "It's that old woman," Vivian says suddenly, her eyes narrowed. "Helen is behind this, isn't she? What did she offer you?" I feel a chill run down my spine. It is incredible how Vivian can quickly identify the source of a potential advantage or threat. Her intuition for opportunity has always been sharp. "Helen has nothing to do with my decisions." I lie partially. "Her influence is present, but the final decision was mine. This is between us." Robert, who had remained silent, finally speaks. "Rebecca, I think what Vivian and Mark are trying to say is that this change seems very sudden. Yesterday you were well yourself. Today you seem like a different person." "Maybe I was always this person, Robert," I reply, looking him in the eyes. "Maybe I just lost my way for a while trying to buy your love." "Buy our love." Mark seems genuinely offended. "That's unfair, Mom." "Is it?" I lean forward. "When was the last time any of you came to visit me without asking for something in return? When was the last time you called just to see how I was? When did you attend one of my watercolor exhibitions? When did you offer to help with anything?" None of them answer. They don't need to. We all know the answer. "This is the deal," I continue after a few moments. "I am here as your mother. I want to have a relationship with you with my grandchildren, but the financial tap is closed. Completely." Vivian stands up abruptly, her chair scraping on the wooden floor with a sharp squeal. "You are going to regret this. When you need us, and you will need us, you're getting older. We'll see if your pride is worth it." "It's not pride, Vivian, it's self-respect." She grabs her designer bag and marches to the door. "Let's go, Robert. We have nothing more to discuss here." Robert hesitates, looking torn. For a brief moment, I think I see something like respect in his eyes before he follows his wife. Mark remains seated watching me with an expression I can't decipher. The room is now immersed in a disturbing silence, broken only by the ticking of the old pendulum clock that belonged to my parents. "Do you also think I'm wrong?" I ask after the front door closes behind Vivian and Robert. My son sighs deeply. "I don't know what to think, Mom. This is unexpected." "Life sometimes is." He stands up slowly. "I need to process all this. Vivian is going to be furious for weeks." "Probably." I agree. At the door, he stops and turns. "Are you okay? Really?" It is the first genuine question about my well-being he has asked in months, maybe years. I feel a small pang of hope, fragile as a shoot in arid soil. "I'm finding my way," I answer honestly. After Mark leaves, I sit alone in the silent room, trembling slightly. I did it. I set clear boundaries. I refuse to be used again. The feeling is both terrifying and liberating. My phone rings. It is Helen. "How did it go?" she asks without preamble. "As well as could be expected," I reply. "Vivian stormed out. Mark is confused. I think I lost my children today." "Or maybe," Helen says softly, "you gave them the chance to become the people they always should have been." The following weeks are a strange kind of quiet. No calls from Vivian, no messages except for a brief text from Mark asking if I had come to my senses. I don't reply. Instead, I use the time to rediscover myself. I dedicate more time to my watercolors, visit old friends I had neglected, join a book club at the local library, and I spend time with Helen, whose days are visibly numbered now. Her face has become thinner, her body more fragile, but her eyes maintain that fierce intensity. Then at the beginning of the 4th week after our confrontation, I receive an unexpected call. It is Marina's school, my 15-year-old granddaughter. "Mrs. Rebecca Marina is here in the nurse's office. She fainted during gym class and asked us to call you instead of her parents." I find Marina sitting in a chair in the school nurse's office, looking small and vulnerable in her wrinkled uniform. Her pale face lights up slightly when she sees me. "Grandma," she says, her voice low. I sit beside her, taking her hands in mine. They are cold and trembling. "What happened, dear?" The nurse approaches. "She fainted during gym class. Her pressure is low, and she admitted she hasn't been eating well." "Not eating." I look at my granddaughter, noticing now the thinness of her face, the dark circles under her eyes. How had I not noticed before? "Can we talk in private?" Marina asks, looking nervously at the nurse. The professional nods understandingly. "I'll leave you alone for a few minutes." When the door closes, Marina breaks down in silent tears. "Everything is a mess, Grandma. Everything." I put my arm around her shoulders. "She seems to have lost weight since I last saw her. Tell me what's happening." "Mom and Dad are fighting all the time," she explains between sobs. "Ever since that night at the restaurant, it's just yelling. The store isn't doing well. Mom says it's your fault for not giving more money. Dad says she needs to wake up and learn to manage a business properly." My heart tightens. "I'm so sorry you're going through this." Marina wipes her tears with her uniform sleeve. There's not much food in the house now. Mom is putting all the money into the store. She said we have to save, that we're in survival mode because of what you did. Guilt hits me like a wave. Are my boundaries affecting my innocent grandchildren? Then I realize it is not my boundaries causing this, but Vivian's response to them. She is choosing to prioritize her failing business over the well-being of her own children. Did you eat today? I ask. She shakes her head. We're going to solve this right now. I stand up determined. First, we're going to get some lunch. Then I'm going to talk to the nurse, and I'm taking you home with me today. Marina's eyes widen. Mom is going to be furious. Let me handle your mother. After a substantial lunch at a nearby restaurant, where Marina devours a full plate as if she hasn't eaten like that in days, I call Vivian. She answers on the fourth ring, her voice instantly defensive. What do you want now? Marina is with me, I inform her calmly. She fainted at school today from lack of adequate nutrition. Silence on the other end. Then, what are you implying? I'm not implying anything, Vivian. I am stating a fact. Marina will stay with me tonight. Tomorrow we would like you and Robert to come over for dinner to talk. I don't need your sermons on parenting, Vivian hisses. This isn't about you or me, I reply firmly. It's about Marina and Luke. If you really care about your children, you will be here tomorrow at 7 p.m. To my surprise, Vivian shows up the next night along with Robert and Luke. My grandson, normally confident and sometimes arrogant like his father, looks tired and disheveled. The tension in the family is clearly affecting both teenagers. I prepare a simple but hearty dinner. During the meal, the atmosphere is tense and silent until finally Vivian puts down her fork with force. So this is what we're here for, so you can show off how you can feed our children better than we can. We are here, I reply calmly, because your children are suffering and we need to find a solution. The solution is obvious, Vivian retorts. Stop this tantrum about the money and help us like you always did. Luke, to my surprise, interrupts. Mom, it's not Grandma's fault that you don't know how to manage money. The silence that follows is sharp. Vivian looks at her son as if he has just slapped her. How dare you talk to me like that? It's true? Luke continues, apparently releasing accumulated frustration. Grandma gave you $250,000 for the store, and in less than a month, you're already broke. You bought that ridiculously expensive Italian stock that nobody wants. You rented the most expensive space in the mall, and now we're the ones suffering. Robert clears his throat uncomfortably. Luke, respect your mother. And you, Luke turns to his father, to his. You just complain, but you don't do anything to help. At least Uncle Mark is trying to keep his own business running without whining for Grandma's money. Marina, silent until then, finally speaks. I just want you to stop fighting. I just want to be able to sleep at night without hearing yelling. Vivian's face crumbles the mask of indignation, giving way to something more vulnerable. For a moment, I glimpse the 8-year-old girl I brought home all those decades ago. I'm trying, she says, her voice breaking. I'm trying to keep everything going. Alone, I add gently, like you've always tried to do everything alone, even when I offered real help, not just money. Vivian looks up at me confused. What do you mean? How many times did I offer to teach you about financial management, about how to run a business? You always refused, preferring the easier path, just asking for more money when things got tough. Robert surprises everyone by speaking up. She's right, Viv. Your mother tried to teach you to fish, but you just wanted the fish already cooked. Robert's comment lands like a bomb on the table. Vivian turns to face him, betrayed by her own husband. For a tense moment, I think she is going to explode, but then something unexpected happens. Her shoulders droop, and she covers her face with her hands. I don't know how to do this, she admits, her voice muffled. I never did. It is such a rare moment of vulnerability that no one at the table knows how to react initially. Marina timidly reaches out and touches her mother's arm. Luke, despite his earlier outburst, looks uncomfortable, seeing his always strong mother suddenly break down. Vivian, I speak gently. The problem was never a lack of ability. You are smart, determined, charismatic. The problem was always that you never really needed to try because I was always there to fix any mistake with more money. She uncovers her face, her eyes red. And now you've taken away my safety net. Yes, I confirm, because I believe you can fly without it. Robert speaks up, surprising me again. Rebecca is right, Viv. We need to solve this ourselves as a family. I look at my son-in-law with new respect. Maybe there is more to him than the complacent man I had always assumed. What do you suggest, then? Vivian asks, sounding genuinely lost. First, I reply, the children come to my house temporarily until you stabilize the situation at home. No arguments, no deprivation. To my surprise, Vivian doesn't protest. Second, I continue, I am not giving any more money, but I can offer something more valuable. Knowledge. I will help you analyze the business restructure it, make it viable, as a mentor, not an investor. You're not a businesswoman, Vivian points out, an echo of her usual distrust. No, I agree, but I have been friends with one of the most successful businesswomen in Austin for over 40 years. I've learned a few things. The mention of Helen makes Vivian frown, but she doesn't comment. And third, I conclude, we all need to relearn how to be a family, not based on money or expectations, but on mutual respect and genuine love. The following days establish a new routine. Luke and Marina settle into the guest rooms at my house, visibly thriving in a tension-free environment. I start working with Vivian at the boutique, analyzing her chaotic finances, identifying critical errors, and developing a recovery plan. To my surprise, when stripped of her defensive attitude, Vivian reveals herself to be an eager learner. I realize that under the layer of entitlement and resentment, there is an intelligent woman who had never been truly challenged to grow. Why did you never force me to learn this before? She asks me one day as we review the projected cash flow. Because you were never ready to listen. I answer honestly. And because I was too busy trying to buy your love to truly help you. Vivian pauses, absorbing my words. I always loved you, she says finally, even in the moments when I treated you badly. I know, I reply, but I think you never learned to respect me. She doesn't respond, but her silence is eloquent. Mark reappears in my life 3 weeks after our initial confrontation. He comes alone without his wife, without the defensive posture he had adopted before. I heard you're helping Vivian with the boutique, he says, accepting a cup of coffee. I'm trying, I confirm. And how are you? Mark sighs deeply. Well, to be honest, your ultimatum made me rethink some things. I realized I was on my way to becoming as dependent as Vivian. And I'm focusing on making my company self-sustainable instead of counting on external capital injections. He hesitates, then adds, I also realized I barely know my own mother. Who are you besides the person who was always there to support us financially? The question takes me by surprise. I am many things, Mark. A professor, an artist, a friend. A woman who discovered her own strength after being widowed at 37. Someone who loves history and literature and long walks at dawn. I'd like to get to know that person better, he says with a shy smile. The weeks turn into months. Helen's test maintaining firm boundaries for 6 months is halfway through when her health deteriorates drastically. She is admitted to the best hospital in Chicago, an entire wing practically reserved for her comfort. I visit her daily, watching with a heavy heart as she fades. Her body may be failing, but her mind remains as sharp as ever. How are things with Vivian? She asks one particularly difficult afternoon, her voice barely above a whisper. Surprisingly well, I reply, holding her fragile hand. The boutique is starting to stabilize. She reduced her rent by moving to a smaller space, renegotiated with suppliers. She's learning to manage a budget. Helen smiles weakly. And Mark, he is paying back the loan he took from me even though I told him it's no longer necessary. He says it's a matter of principle now. The grandchildren. Still with me, but they visit their parents regularly. The house is quieter. Robert is more present. They are rebuilding slowly. Helen squeezes my hand with what little strength she has left. You are passing the test admirably, Rebecca. It's not about the test or the money anymore, I confess. It's about finally having real relationships with my children. That was the real test, Helen whispers. It always was. Helen passes away on a quiet Sunday morning 3 weeks later. She goes in her sleep without pain as she had hoped. I am by her side, having spent the night at the hospital. I hold her hand until the end, silently thanking her for decades of true friendship. The funeral is a grand event, as expected, for one of the most influential women in Austin. Business leaders, politicians, prominent society figures. Everyone comes to pay their respects. In the midst of that crowd of power and influence, I notice Vivian and Mark at the back, both clearly uncomfortable, present more out of obligation than genuine respect. The reading of the will takes place a week later. Walter Mendez, Helen's longtime lawyer, conducts the meeting in his office. To everyone's surprise, everyone is invited. Me, Vivian, and Robert Mark and his wife, even my teenage grandchildren. Before we begin, Walter says formally, Helen requested that this video be shown. Helen's image appears on the large screen in the office. Despite being clearly weakened by the illness, she maintains that dignified posture and penetrating gaze that always characterized her. If you are watching this, I have already left this world, she begins. But before I reveal my final decisions, I want you all to understand the reason for them. Helen looks directly at the camera. I spent the last months of my life observing how my dear friend Rebecca's family treated her. I saw people who should love and respect her treating her like a walking ATM. I saw the humiliation at the Chandelier restaurant. I heard the calls demanding money. I witnessed the disinterest in her feelings and achievements. Vivian shifts uncomfortably in her chair. Mark looks at the floor. Particularly you, Vivian, Helen continues, as if she can see her in that moment. The girl Rebecca welcomed and loved as a daughter, transformed into an adult, who treats her adoptive mother with calculated cruelty. You not only constantly demand money, but you seem to enjoy diminishing her. Vivian's face turns red with shame and anger. And you, Mark. Maybe you're not as openly cruel, but your indifference and willingness to exploit your mother's generosity are just as reprehensible. After a dramatic pause, Helen smiles. So I decided to intervene. I proposed a test to Rebecca, set clear boundaries with you for 6 months. If she succeeded, she would inherit my fortune. But the real test wasn't for her. It was for you. The silence in the room is absolute. All eyes are fixed on the screen. Rebecca, my dear friend. Helen continues, her voice softer. You passed the test with flying colors. You regained your dignity, your self-respect. As for the rest of you, her gaze hardens. Well, the results speak for themselves. Walter turns off the video and picks up a document. The will is quite clear. The entire estate of Helen Campos Company's investments and properties, valued at approximately $2 billion, is left to Rebecca Mendoza. Vivian gasps audibly. Mark turns pale. There's more, Walter continues. Helen established separate trust funds for each family member, but with specific conditions. He turns to Vivian. For you, Vivian, a $5 million trust fund accessible only after 5 years of proven work at an NGO of your choice at minimum wage. No money from Rebecca can be used during this period. Vivian jumps up furiously. This is ridiculous. She can't do that. In fact, she can, Walter replies calmly. And she did. For Mark, he continues, a similar fund, but with the condition that he work for 3 years as a teacher in a public school in the suburbs. Mark is dumbfounded. But my company. As for the grandchildren, Walter proceeds, ignoring him. Each will receive a generous educational fund accessible directly at age 18 without parental intervention. Robert, who had remained silent, finally speaks. And me. Walter consults the documents. You have the option to stay with Vivian during her period of community service or divorce her with a compensation of $200,000. Chaos erupts in the room. Vivian shouts accusations. Mark argues about the injustice. Robert seems to be calculating his options. Only my grandchildren remain silent, perhaps secretly relieved to have their future guaranteed, regardless of their parents' choices. I stand up calmly. Enough. To my surprise, everyone falls silent. Helen left me not only her fortune, but also the power to modify these conditions. I look at each of them, and I am going to use it. Vivian immediately adopts a conciliatory tone. "Mom, you know we love you. That thing at the restaurant was just a silly joke." I raise my hand, cutting her off. "The conditions remain, with one alteration. If you complete your respective service periods with sincerity and dedication, you will not only receive the trust funds, but you will also be reinstated as heirs to part of what now belongs to me." Everyone's eyes widen at the possibility of financial redemption. "But," I continue, my voice now steel, "if you choose to contest the will, if you try legal maneuvers, or if you continue with your past behavior, even that offer will be withdrawn." 6 months later, to my surprise, both Vivian and Mark had accepted the conditions. Vivian was working at an NGO for needy children, using her fashion skills to teach sewing and design to teenagers. Mark was teaching math and computer science at a public school, discovering a talent for education he never knew he had. Robert had opted for divorce, choosing the money over a marriage that was already deteriorated. Luke and Marina were thriving under my partial care, visiting their parents regularly and witnessing their transformations. On my 70th birthday, I receive an unexpected gift, a photo album assembled by Vivian documenting her work with the children. On the last page, a simple note. "Thank you for forcing me to discover the person I can be instead of the one I became. The lesson was hard, but necessary. I'm beginning to understand the value of what you and Helen did. With love and newfound respect, Vivian." Looking out the window at the sunset over my garden, I silently raise a glass in honor of my late friend. "Well played, Helen," I whisper. "Well played." Maybe I think as I close Vivian's album, the real revenge is not destruction, but transformation. Helen understood that perfectly. By using her fortune, not just as a reward, but as a tool for change, she had given us all a second chance. Not to pretend the past didn't exist, but to build a better future from its hard lessons. Sometimes the truest love isn't in giving everything someone asks for, but in having the courage to say no when necessary. It took losing almost everything and gaining $2 billion for me to learn that lesson. But in the end, I gained something much more valuable, a family that was finally learning the meaning of respect and true love. Now, if you like this story, click on this next video that is appearing on the screen, because in it, there is a story of betrayal and revolt like you've never seen before.